Well, the Wartime Forces sweetheart Dame Vera Lynn is gracing the cover of many of the newspapers this morning as people pay tribute to the late star.
Catherine Jenkins posted a special message for her mentor and friend, saying that she will be greatly missed, while Sir Paul McCartney said her voice will sing in his heart forever. It was her song, We'll Meet Again, that was an anthem of hope and resilience during World War II.
Tim Rice, who is a good friend of Dame Vera, joins us now from Cornwall. Good morning to you, Tim.
Morning.
Thank you for getting up to share some memories and some thoughts of your good friend. How did you first meet her?
I first met her in 1968, frighteningly long time ago, at my boss's, Norrie Paramore's daughter's wedding. Norrie Paramore was a very distinguished record producer and orchestrator, composer, who was particularly successful in the 50s and 60s. And he discovered Cliff Richard and the Shadows, among other great artists. And he was a great friend of Vera's. And his daughter Jane got married, and I went to the wedding, and I was honoured and thrilled to meet Vera and her family. And I ran into them on lots of occasions ever since, but largely through Norrie to begin with. But then I became involved in her charities and kept in touch.
She had this spectacular voice, of course, that touched so many people and sort of in a way that sort of transcended the musicality of it as well. There was something that everybody gravitated towards, the sentiment of what she was singing and what she represented. What was she like as a friend and as a person that you got to know?
Well, I think she was, above all, very modest. I think if you hadn't known it was Vera Lynn you were talking to, you wouldn't think this is one of the most influential performers of all time. She was in many respects, and I mean this as a great compliment, she was in many respects an ordinary person, but it was her ordinariness that got through to so many millions and millions of people. And of course she wasn't ordinary in the sense that what she achieved was absolutely outstanding. And her efforts during the war were superb, praised by Winston Churchill, among others. And I think one of the things that brought that home to me was when I was lucky enough to be able to introduce my mother to Vera. And my mother was exactly Vera's contemporary, and she was also heavily involved in the war, not in anything like Vera's capacity, of course, but she was in Egypt for a lot of the war. But of all the people my mother met in her life, she always said that meeting Dame Vera was the most exciting and most inspiring.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Because I think, you know, she meant so much to people. She was a huge source of comfort to the wartime generation, obviously going out there at personal risk to places like Burma and Egypt to sing for the troops, to bring them a taste of home, to boost morale. She really did have a special place in people's hearts, didn't she?
She certainly did. Her voice was, I mean, I'm confident she would have been a hugely successful singer, even without her magnificent wartime efforts and her subsequent charity work, because she had such a warm voice and she made you believe that she believed in the lyrics and in the song, which she did. And it was a very pure voice, and it was an enormously successful voice beyond the war, because she had a #1 record in America in 1952 and had a lot of records on the charts after the war. And of course, it wasn't just her wartime fans, it was a new generation discovering her music. And of course, as we all know, she had huge successes with her albums in later years. Well, very, very recently, she was on the charts, of course. In fact, I think she's almost bound to go back up to #1 any minute. But her collected hits and some of her great recordings were hugely successful 10 years ago, just because they were good.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? Yeah, so she became the oldest artist to get into the top 40 album in the UK recently, which was amazing to see her back in the charts again, wasn't it? And also her song mentioned by the Queen in that beautiful speech, wasn't it? Saying, "We'll meet again," which must have meant so much to her.
I'm sure it did. It's rather ironic and sad that Vera should pass away just at the moment when we are facing another national crisis, which one hopes is not as grim a crisis as World War II was. And it's fitting that her greatest song and the greatest interpreter of that song should be remembered by the Queen at this time. It was a marvelous tribute, and it's something that I don't think any other British entertainer will ever achieve.
Her legacy will live on, and that's the most important thing, is that even as we are going through the rest of the coronavirus and the pandemic, her music and her lyrics and that phrase, "we'll meet again," will resonate for many years and for all of us. I'm sure she, as a performer, Tim, much like you, would be very worried about the perilous state of the theatre at the moment. I'm sure you've seen and have contact with many of your friends who work in theatre about the situation that they're facing now. There is a huge shortfall. Thousands and thousands of theatre workers, not least the ones on stage, but the ones backstage as well, out of work and desperately needing to get back there. Do you feel like the government should be offering some sort of bailout, Tim? Can you see a way through this for the theatre world?
Well, the theatre world's very important to the country, financially and, of course, artistically. Yes, I mean, that's the short answer is yes. But the government are in a ghastly position with everybody saying we're special. I mean, the theatre, I think, really is special. It's a nightmare situation. I mean, one just has to hope that we will muddle through. And I think Dame Vera felt when times were very, very dark in the Second World War that all would be okay in the end, although there'd be some pretty grim periods getting to the end. And I think the same is true here. I think the theatre is too great an institution, and there are too many talented and gifted people around not to make it come back. But I must say, to see the way through the next 6, 9 months, 2 years is hard to know how it's going to work out.
Yeah, well, let's hope that it does all work out OK in the end. But we're grateful for your thoughts this morning, for your remembrances of Dame Vera Lynn. And I know that she'd said in a recent interview, do what you can to help each other during these difficult times. And a lot of people will very much miss her. That sounds like it's someone ringing to say, you're on the television.
Do you know you're on the telly?
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
It is live. How funny.
I
don't know who it is.
Yes, we'll let you go, Tim, and then you can answer the phone. It could be important. But thank you so much for sharing those memories with Dame Vera this morning.
Very
Thank you
grateful.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.